We begin now at the top of Daf Chof Amud Beis in Meseches Shabbos. This is Shabbos Daf 20b. The Gemara says, Amar Rav Kahana. Rav Kahana says, Kanim she'ogdon tzrichin rov. If a person has reeds and they are bound together, then the majority needs to catch fire in order not to be concerned that you're going to stoke the flames on Shabbos. Lo ogdon, if they're not bound together, ain't tzrichin rov. Then, since they're all separated from one another, there's nothing on the inside that's protected from the flames, they do not need to catch fire in the majority. Garinin, when it comes to the pits of dates, tzrichin rov, there it's the opposite. There, if they are not together, they need the majority to catch fire. Nasan b'chosalos, but if you put them into the chosalos, essentially binding them together, ein tzrichin rov, then they do not need rov. Rashi here explains this is relevant to the discussion previously on Chaf Amud Aleph at the bottom. Rav Kahana Amar Kanim Shaglan Tzrichin Rov K'Rav Huna. This statement of Rav Kahana, when it comes to reeds, that follows Rav Huna. The flames do not catch properly. We're not afraid when they're separated. They're very long, they're very heavy. So even when they're not bound together, we have no concern. And therefore they do not need rov in such a case. They only need rov when they're bound together. When it comes to pits, garin and shenasan b'chosalos ain't tzrichin rov. There, where they're together, they don't need rov. It's the opposite. Rav Chisda, that follows Rav Chisda. Shenochin lidalik, they light very easily. Ava below chosalos, when they're not together, mevadri, they're spread apart, and one will not cause the other to burn properly, and therefore they do need majority to be burning. Tani Rav Yosef taught. Arba meduros ein tzrichin rov. There are 4 kinds of bonfires, essentially, that don't need majority to be burning before Shabbos in order to allow to continue burning on Shabbos. Shal zephis, one of them is pitch. V'shal gofris, if it's sulfur. V'shal gavina, if it's cheese. V'shal revav, Rashi says revav is fatty things that melt. It could be wax or just fat from an animal. All of those things do not need rov. But Masnisa Tana, we learned in a brisa, af shel kash v'shel gavava, the same is true of straw or of stubble. Amar Rabbi Yochanan says, eitzim shel bavel ain't tzrichin rov. The wood that's found in bavel burns very well. That does not need majority to be burning before Shabbos in order to continue using the fire on Shabbos. Maskiv Rav Yosef asks, Maihi, what are you referring to when you talk about Babylonian wood? Elaim was silty. If you're referring to silty, Rashi says that there was a custom in Bavel to make very thin pieces of wood. So hashtap silo amar ula hamadak tzarch sheyadlik barov. When it comes to wicks, the halach is rov needs to be burning. Barov hayotziv, the majority that's coming out, needs to be burning. Silti mibai, certainly if you had small pieces of wood, the same way they're no better than a wick, and certainly you would need to have rov. So Ela Amar of Yosef, rather Rav Yosef says, Shucha da'arza. What we're talking about over here is the dry cedar wood. Rami Barabba says, Zaza, we're talking here about moss. So Rashi here explains, Amarula, when it comes to wicks, Hamadlik ner shel Shabbos yadlik barov hayotze mirosh apsila. The majority of the wick coming out needs to be lit. Chutz l'ner, the majority of the wick that's sticking out of the candle. So certainly when it comes to these pieces of wood, the same would be true. Shocha da'arza, the cedar branches, yaveshu, this is dry, v'dakin, it's very thin. V'yesh kamin semer ben klipol eitz. They actually have, there's some wick-like material, some wool-like material between the bark and the tree. And it can, once the flame starts burning over there, it's not a problem, and therefore we assume that it's going to catch fire properly, and we assume you do not need rov. So the shucha da'arza is essentially this wick-like material that comes from this dry cedar. And again, that's the opinion of Rav Yosef. Rami Barabba says it refers to the moss. The zaza, that's the item. That's the item that we're referring to when we talk about the eitzim shel bavel that do not need rov. Hadron aloch Yitzias HaShabbos. That is the end of the first parak of Meseches Shabbos, Yitzias HaShabbos. If you are a regular user of this channel, you should please like and subscribe, and also see the description box on the bottom for other ways that you can support this channel. We will now continue and begin the second parak of Meseches Shabbos. What items can you light fires for that you're going to use on Shabbos, that you're going to light before Shabbos, but that you can use these flames on Shabbos, this light on Shabbos? And what can you not use? Rashi says here, what wicks, what material is good for wicks? All of these things in the Mishnah will be explained what they mean in the Gemara. The idea here is certain kinds of materials, wicks or oils or whatever it is, burn better than others, and so certain ones we're not concerned that you're going to start playing around with the fire on Shabbos, and other ones were concerned that the flame might go out, something might be wrong with the flame, and therefore you're not allowed to use such a flame on Shabbos because we're afraid that you're going to tamper with it. So the Mishnah now begins the list. Ein madlikin lo belechesh, velo bechosen, velo bechaluch, velo befsilas ha'idan, velo befsilas hamidbar, velo biroka shal pnei hamoyim. All these things are going to be identified in the Gemara. Literally, Yeroka Shal Pnei Hamayim means like the green that's on the surface of the water. We'll explain that in the Gemara as well. V'lo bezefes, v'lo b'shayva, v'lo b'shemen kik, v'lo b'shemen sreifa, v'lo b'alya, v'lo b'chelev. All of these items you cannot light with for Shabbos. Nachum Hamadi Omer, Nachum, the median said, Madlikin b'chelev mevushal, that you are allowed to light with fat that is cooked. The Chachamim said, Echad mevushal v'echad she'eino mevushal, whether it's cooked, whether it's not cooked, ein madlikin bo, you are not allowed to light with it. Rashi here explains, Lo bezefes v'lo b'shava lav le'inyan psila. Here the Mishnah is turning away from wicks. Ela loses b'makom shemen. We're talking about oils. These are the kinds of oils that you're not allowed to use. V'chol hani mizefes v'elach psulei shmonim hein. All of the things listed from Zephes in the Mishnah and onward are different kinds of oils that are no good to use for fire on Shabbos. The Gemara now starts by describing or by explaining what these items are. So lechesh, what is lechesh? Again, shocha, the arza, that refers to the wool-like material that we mentioned before that's found in the cedar wood. So the Gemara says, shocha, the arza, eitz ba'almahu. So the Gemara says, what is the cedar? Right now the Gemara doesn't realize it's the wool-like material just yet. So the dry cedar, that's just regular wood. Of course that can't be used as a wick. So the Gemara says, ba'amr nisa dispe, we're referring to the wool-like material that is within it. Rashi explains there, eitz ba'almahu, pshita, the lo chazi l'psila, elamedura. You don't use wood for wicks, you use it for bonfires. There's nothing to talk about. Gemara says, amr nisa, kamin semer yesh, ben klipa soleit. So there's a kind of a wool-like material between the klipa and the eitz. We should point out over here that the Gemara here is saying that the wool-like material that's part of the cedar is not allowed to be used for wicks. The Gemara earlier also mentioned shocha d'arza. There they were talking about the actual wood of the cedar, and there it was the opposite. There it was considered this Babylonian wood that you don't even need rove to be burning in order to be allowed to burn it on Shabbos. Gemara now continues. V'lo b'chosen, the next thing you're not allowed to use in the Mishnah is chosen. Amar Rav Yosef says, Naores shel pishton. The chosen is the strands of flax. Amar le Abai says, V'aksiv ha'chason l'naores. Pasuk actually says the chosen will become naores. So mechlal the chosen lav naores. So the pasuk is implying that those are two separate items, chosen and naores. Elamar Abai, rather Abai says, kisna de dayek v'lo nafetz. What it's referring to is flax, which is beaten, but it's not really combed out into strands. Rashi here explains, Kisna d'dayik v'lo nafetz, d'keven d'lo nafetz ein shemen nimshach acharav. If it's not combed out properly, then the oil doesn't draw after it properly, and that's why you cannot use this chosen. Rashi says, nafetz is kafri, u'naores min hadak sheba. What is naores shel pishtan? That's like the more thin material of flax. V'hachi kamar kra pishtan hachazak. What the pasuk meant was the strong flax. That's the chosen. Yehafech l'naores is going to become the weaker kind of flax. Kolomar hagibor yecholash, meaning the mighty. It was a metaphor. The mighty are going to become weak. So basically, the Gemara here is saying that the chosen is a kind of flax, but it's a stronger kind of flax material than the neores shel pishtan. The Gemara continues at the two dots, v'lo bekalach, you're not allowed to use kalach for wicks on Shabbos. Amar Shmuel says, Shiltinu l'chol nechusayam, I asked all of the seafarers, v'amri, and they said, kulcha shmei. This item is called kulcha. What is it? So Rav Yitzchak bar Zira Amar Gushkara. Rav Yitzchak bar Zira says it's Gushkara. Rashi explains here that Gushkara is essentially an inferior kind of silk. So the Gemara continues. Ravin v'Abaya have a yasra kame de Ravna Nechemya achua deresh galusa. One time Ravin and Abaya were sitting in front of Ravna Nechemya, who was the brother of the head of the exile. Chaz yadav elovish mitachsa. They saw he was wearing a silk garment. Amar le Ravin le Abaya. So Ravin said to Abaya, Hainu kalach tetanan. That is the kalach of the Mishnah. So Amar le, he said back to him, Anon shira paranda karinale. We call that shira paranda. We call that real silk. So there's various explanations how to explain this Gemara, but one simple approach is he was saying, Abaye was saying back to Ravin, no, what he's wearing is real silk, and the Mishnah is talking about an inferior kind of silk, and Ravin apparently held the Mishnah is talking about regular silk. So the Gemara asks on Ravin, Meisve, they asked, Hashiroim v'akalach v'asirkin chayavim b'tzitzis. These are all different kind of silk that are chayav in tzitzis, and it implies that shiroim, regular silk, and kalach are two different things, and therefore Ravin is incorrect to say they're the same thing. So the Gemara says, Tiyufta de Ravin, it's a refutation on Ravin, Tiyufta, it indeed is a refutation. Or you could say Shira L'chud, the Shira Pranda L'chud. There are two separate things. There's Shira and there's Shira Pranda. So it could be that Ravin would tell you that Shira Pranda and kalach are the same thing. It's an inferior kind of silk. And when the Brisa says shiraim and kalach, shiraim is indeed different than kalach. So it's not a contradiction to what he said. Gemara continues at the two dots, v'lo b'fsilas ha'idon, not with the wicks of Edon. What are those? So it says achvina. Rashi explains that as arava, that's willow, the same willow that we were talking about a little earlier. Ravin v'Abaya have a ka'azlu b'piksa de tamrurisa. So Ravin and Abaya were traveling. This is the same Ravin and Abaya. They were traveling in the valley of Tamarisa. Chazino lahanu arvasa. They saw some willow. They changed the text to an ayin. Amar le Ravin la Abaya. So Ravin said to Abaya, Hainu Edon de Tanan. That is the willow. That's the Edon in the Mishnah is willow. Amar le said to him, Ahi etz ba'alma. What are you talking about? That's just wood. You're pointing to wood. How can you say that wood is even fit to be a wick? So So Ravin peeled it away, and he showed that there's a wool-like material, similar to the wool-like material we were talking about the cedar before. So also over here, there's a wood-like material in this willow, and that's what you're trying to make the wick out of, and that's what the Mishnah says is no good as a wick on Shabbos. V'lo b'fsilas hamidbar, you can't do it with the wicks of the midbar. What is that? The Gemara says shavra. That refers to shavra. Rashi says, min esav aruch v'karnoso urtia. So this is some kind of a long grass. And the translators say that this refers to something called nettles. We continue with the two dots. The Mishnah said, Velo baroka sha'al pnei hamoyim, not with the green that's on top of the water. Mahi, what does that refer to? Ilaim uchmas decharitzi, if you say it refers to seaweed, which is green and it grows on top of the water. If ruchem efarchen, that breaks apart. It's not fit to be made into a wick anyhow. El Amar Apapa, rather Apapa says, uchmas de'arba, it refers to moss. Tana, they learned in a Brisa, hosifu alein, that they added some other things that cannot be used as a wick. Shal tsemer, wool, v'shal sar, hair. V'tana done in our Mishnah, why doesn't it include those things? So tsemer michvas kavitz, so wool essentially shrinks immediately in the face of the flames, and so it really can't be a wick anyway, so there was no need to include it. And sar, ichruche michrach, hair singes and burns away, and also is not fit to be used for a wick in any case. V'lo bezephes, then it says you can't use pitch, so zephes is zifsa, refers to pitch. Shava kirusa, and shava refers to wax. So Tana, we learned in a Brisa, Adkan psul psilas. Until the Zephes, we were talking about wicks. Mikan v'elech psul shmonim. From here onward, we're talking about things that can't be used as oil. So the Gemara says, Pshit, isn't it obvious? All of these items aren't even able to be made into wicks. So of course it's talking about oil. So the Gemara says, Shava etzrichale. No, it's a chiddush when it comes to wax. Ma'u detemu lepsilos nami lo chazi. Because I might have thought that wax cannot be used as a wick. Now the way Rashi explains this is really like our wax candles. Maybe I would have thought that you can't even use wax in the form of a candle. Kamash malan, that you are allowed to use. So the Mishnah teaches us that it's only, or this Brisa teaches us that shaiva is only bad as an oil. But if you use it in a candle form as almost what we view as a wick, then it actually would be fine. Rashi here says, Shaiva etzrichale, lefisha regin lasos kamen psila arucha. They would make the wax, turn the wax into something that looked like a long wick, kind of like our candles. V'apsila lesoch, and they put a wick inside of it, kamoshan uosim, like we do. I might have thought that that's a problem, so the Brisa is telling us that's not a problem. Shaiva is only a problem if it's used as an oil. Amar Rami Baravin, so Rami Baravin says, Itrina psulta de zifsa, so Itrina is the junk, the bad part of the pitch. And shaiva, what is shaiva? What is that kind of wax? What is that wax? It's psulta de duvsha. It's actually made of the junk, the bad part of the honey. Rashi here says, psulta de zivsa la'achar sheyotze hazefes min ha'etz zav mimenu al-yedei, or psoles solo kashemen. After the pitch leaves the wood, it flows through some fire. You can get some other psoles, which kind of flows like oil. V'hu itron, that refers to itron. And we will continue this discussion in the next video on Daf Chaf Aleph Amud Aleph.